Hello, this is Defacto Review for this week with me, Jargal Tampatarja. We will cover three issues of last week, of three events happened in Mongolia. First topic is about corruption. Fight against corruption may become a war. Second topic, rural recovery should start from cooperatives. And the third topic is, will General Election Commission be truly independent? These are three topics I would like to talk today. First issue about corruption. Why I say the fight against corruption became as a war, the following reasons. For the last 30 years, Mongolia had achieved certain progresses. But however, there are several things that we could not make or made very worse. Today, 1/3 of Mongolians live in poverty. And half of the population lives in just one city. By making Mongolia the leading country by air pollution and by the per capita amount or by penetration of the cancers. Very bad news. And inflation and the exchange rate of national currency are so bad that the salary become peppers and people choose to go to Korea. So why are we in this situation after 30 years? Main contributing factor here is corruption. Corruption that is a phenomena when the high-ranking public officials using their positions for their own and on-group interests, making or stealing the chances and property or wealth and chances of other ordinary people. That's becoming very rampant, and for the last 30 years, many governments were talking about fighting corruptions in very high way and in very different voices, but nothing is done. Substantial. The only serious work started in 2016 with the current Prime Minister. That time was a chief staff of the cabinet, head of the cabinet secretary of the Mongolian government. Why I am saying that? Let me give you some list of what he has done. 1. Erdenet and Mongol Rostsvetmet, main joint venture with Russia, where 49% of the shares belonged to Russian government, and a group of people with the head of Erdenbilek, who is the owner of TGB, were able to buy somehow those shares, which Mongolian government could not do before. But they made it possible, and they bought these shares, some $500 million USD, but fortunately, it was all public money. So they tried to pretend that this is their money, but finally it looks like they have agreed that this is public money, and now it's a matter of making balance who owns what. But however, that is to be made at the court. That court is delayed for years, almost 6-7 years now. Second, Oyu Tolga 2.3 billion Mongolian debt is cancelled now, because it was instead of 34% of the shares investment, which was regarded as a debt to the government to the joint venture. The third, the scandal around small medium enterprises development fund, support fund. It was quite a deal 3-4 years ago, and majority of the MP, parliament members were involved in that, and somehow only few, in fact, got any penalty on that. And the one now, the current one is the scandal around or bad loans or stealing of the development bank assets by the few people who are connected politically in this country. Now, the court is on of this criminal case, and some 80 accused are in the process of court now, and we have now 10 days continuation, every 10 days continuation of this court process in Ulaanbaatar as we speak of. It is around 3.2 trillion MNT crime. Next one is we call it coal, steal of coal. Yes, they were stealing coal, millions of tons coal through border, and one individual cannot do that. It's in cooperation with all the state officials. That's what it's about now. And now we have, the ordinary public, discovered that was happened. And some high-ranking officials are held responsible now. Their homes, otherwise before, was immune to investigate. They were investigated. And many high-ranking officials, also the judges, prosecutors, officials of customs, border protections are involved already. I think it is about thousands or so people will be investigated, checked. However, the parliamentarian hearing, which was also the same hearing, which was very helpful in the case of development bank crimes, but now this parliamentarian hearing, which was planned to have on this call, was postponed. You see how powerful is the corruption army in this regard, because many people in this gray palace will be involved, and they are now so much afraid. They are fighting all around, running all around to avoid this hearing, which they did. But we public demand that the hearing should be done. So we talk about 30 to 40 trillion MNT, almost equivalent of the Mongolian economy. That is the size of crime related to coal. And since this stealing was stopped, Mongolia is selling a record high coal for just 1 quarter. Almost half of for quarter sale of the coal was a half of the whole full year of previous years sale. So the other thing is now this government with the Prime Minister Oyun Irden announced 2023 as a year of combating corruption. And they have not only announced it as a year of corruption, which many governments announced many years, devoted to many things, but they immediately started 5 actions, including the bird. As a result, the first person was to taken back, brought by force, is Batam Junai, Mr. Batam Junai, who was the general manager of Ulaanbaatar city, who is allegedly connected with major corruptions around Ulaanbaatar land. As a result, we have no place to extend the roads, and we are just stuck in traffic jam for another 5 hours every day. So we pay a lot for this, his and his related people's corruption. The next one will be bringing back Otan Jargal, Mr. Otan Jargal, who was head of the railway project from Tawantolga to Zamingud. He's a general. He got a hero title from the previous president, Batolga, and after that he ran away. Last track was in Argentina, they say. So, and this is just not the end of this fight for corruption. It will now, this corruption fight will continue now with the land speculation in Ulaanbaatar city then it will go to the specialized government funds. There are some 30 plus funds. We don't know how much we have been spending for what and who was responsible for that. And now you expect another list of corruptions in this country. So what I'm saying is we have a full full army of corrupt officials. I call it corruption army. Why I'm saying that? Because the leaders of this corruption armies are still free. They are free. They have money. They have a power. They now organize demonstrations. It is not the issue of a political party. They are of all political parties. Why I'm saying that? Above mentioned all these criminal cases. No one has almost a penalty by today. Every crimes are now in the court, where they keep that files forever. Sometimes postponing, sometimes returning back to investigation, etc., and they play with all these things. Our justice system, court system, is really slow to make sure that things, finally, the justice is done, unfortunately. And as I said, it's an army, because they keep organizing demonstrations, and according to the Prime Minister, they run after the court system. They run after smaller fish, leaving free all the big fishes. And they really can very successfully run away people's attention, distract people's attention to their bigger fishes and to smaller things. Because also they have own media, as out of 500 media outlets, 75% in Mongolia of these media outlets belong to politicians. Almost every politician, including our almost all presidents, have own TV channel, own website. So it's name it. So they, by all means, they try to neutralize this five-ish operation, because one of them will somehow touch everybody in this army. That's why they also try to, by all means, to get resigned this government of Oyun Yurtin, Prime Minister Oyun Yurtin. They attack this Prime Minister on social medias, by all means, giving many giving many works to his address, which he has not done. So basically, this army is really now very much in panic, and most importantly, public in general support very much the Prime Minister for his fight against corruptions. And some of this army people, or those who is arrested, saying that the time will be returning. That's what they hope. People don't want this time of corruption returning back. So let's see. And I think this corruption war will be finished as soon as people support this fight with the head of Prime Minister against all these corrupt people. Finally, Mongolia needs to finish this page of corruption and to go to the next chapter of next 30 years of progress, and we have everything for that. So that's my first topic. My second topic today is about rural recovery should start from cooperatives. Why? The base of agriculture, mostly animal husbandry in this country, is land, pasture land. And the pasture land is now not managed well. Even it does not belong to anybody actually. The de jure belongs to all people, but de facto to belong nobody, because nobody is taking responsibility for overgrazing, for example. So the Mongolian government had certain new approaches now. They made renewed the law on cooperatives. They suggest according to this law, once you have a corporation, it will be regarded as a company, and it will be exempted from VAT, and it will be also supported by the fund, which was called before Some Development Fund. In other words, the Some Development Fund will go now as a cooperative development fund, or cooperative support fund, which is not that big money, but it's substantial money for every sum. We have over 330 sums in this country. So the government officials say now one sum is one cooperative. But I say no, this one bug is one cooperative, and it's new rural area development. Bug is each sum, I'm talking about this 330 sum, each sum has some 5 to 6 bug. Bug is the smallest administrative unit in this country which has own land, particular outlined land. So since land is the main source of this pasture land, in the pasture, then the people who are living on this land, the pasture, is to get together as a cooperative and manage properly. It's the only force that can manage properly, meaning that they can decide in which part of their territories to have a rest, for example, for this year, which one is used this year or next year. So without proper planning, Mongolia is becoming, with such a high speed, desert, becoming desert. And really, according to one scientist from Germany, if all things go like this in Mongolia, in 10 years it will be catastrophic. It will be irreversible, catastrophic, the largest catastrophe in Asia. That's what he said to me. So it's a very warning. We need to really take care of differently our pasture land. So last week there was a consultative meeting of all sums of South Gobi Aimak in Hambogd Sum, which is a nearby OT project. And Hambogd is regarded to be kind of Umungav Erdenet. Erdenet is a copper town city in the north since 1974. So it was organized by the Ministry of Agriculture and Light Industry, Small Medium Enterprise Department, South Gobi Governor Office, South Gobi Food and Agriculture Department, and also Hambogd Sum Governor Office. And all the representatives from each Somong came there together, and they discussed about current policy, best experiences, and they were more introduced about the advantages of Harshaw and also challenges that other Harshaw have faced so far. For example, a person from another Aimak, Gobi Alta Darvisum, Buyant Unterral Cooperative, it's had Irdinbat. Another cooperative from Tuaimak, Undershiret Sum, the head of the cooperative there, Ms. Oyung. And also another cooperative, it's a joint cooperatives. It's Mr. Dorj Surung, who was talking about clear soil effects. So these people were introducing their experiences of those rather successfully run cooperatives, but they also discussed the challenges they have faced initially And today, after so many years, some of them are already many years. So this kind of discussions, very fruitful discussions, were held in Hamburg zum last week. And I think it's a good example for every IMAC to get together and learn the experience from other IMACs, in particular in terms of managing better the pasture land they have. In particular, the one concept was, for example, the goat in the total amount of goat and sheep heads to be less than 30%. Now it's currently they're almost 50 to 50%, which is a major factor of the certification of pasture in Mongolia. This is just one example. The other thing is how to make more melioration, hydromelioration of the remote areas, and who will be running those wells, in which way. So there are many things to discuss. In particular, there was interesting discussions about intensive way of farming, which means farming where mostly they should combine pasture land and farming with a particular effective feed of animals during winter time, having them in more feed lot rather than going to a pasture where all covered by snow. So this kind of experiences were exchanged there. So the third topic I would like to highlight is about the General Election Commission of Mongolia. The reason of highlighting this is in the president-initiated law on that law is about the political parties. There is a quite enough large provision on General Election Commission. But that law does not make this commission really neutral, independent to the extent we need. Why? Because we need this General Election Commission really to be independent and transparent. Yet it is now represented by political powers. That's the critics, because they have not touched the issue of composition of the General Election Commission. Now there are 9 people. 2 of them are selected or nominated by the president. 5 of them are to be by the parliament, and 2 of them are to be by the Supreme Court. And each of them are nominated for 6 years. However, the current media saying and bringing interesting examples of how those peoples are being not independent. For example, in a newspaper, Nodur, they bring the bio of, for example, the head of Mr. Dilgir Naran, who was nominated by Battolga, but he was agreed with Mr. Khurud Sukh, that time Prime Minister, because he's turned out friends to both of them and working for both of them, for example. Well, that's what these people are complaining. The General Secretary, the head and General Secretary are the only 2 individuals, full-time officers. The other 7 is to be half-time or part-time officers. But according to this new law of the political parties, the General Election Commission will be responsible for controlling or monitoring political parties' financing, which is completely different than the previous law, because by the previous law, only the Supreme Court is to do so, which they never did. They just were registering or delisting the political parties. Now, in between registering and the delisting political parties, all this life will be controlled by the General Election Commission. So we need a proper control of the political parties, particular financing, which is the source of, by the way, the corruption I have talked earlier. I think main source of corruption in this country is political parties financing, political election campaign financing. And those are secret and very symbolically put some name and some money contributed, but this is probably just peanut of small share of total costs that the candidates spending for their political campaign, for example, or political parties that spend during their whole lifetime. So that's why we need in Mongolia very transparent political party financing, and we don't think that this current General Election Commission, even after the president initiated the law approved, will be doing that what we are expecting. Instead, General Election Commission, people suggest now it is to be General Electorate Commission, mostly consisting of those who are voting, not who are elected, which is the logical way of approach, like in the UK. In the UK, it's called General Electorate Commission. It consists of the political parties that has seat in the parliament, but it will cost, majority of the commission's member will cost of ordinary or well-known official public figures who doesn't belong to political parties. I think this is the way how we need to change this General Election Commission, which is very important institute in the democracy. And because this institute was not working, people did not trust in their work. In 2008, we had a riot in Ulaanbaatar city, and we have lost 5 lives. And this, until now, we don't know who shot these 5 people. Certainly, they have not shot themselves. So the Mongolian government has not reported to public until now, though they know that who killed them. Okay, that's my third topic, and I would like to. This time I have briefed 3 things. One is a corruption fight today in Mongolia, which is just now starting seriously, because the whole corruption cases are disclosed, but not the corrupt officials had any penalty, not yet. The court is going on. The second is about cooperatives. Cooperative is should be the start point of the rural recovery policy. The third is about the General Election Commission, about the function of which the people are not happy. Hopefully it will be changed. So these are 3 topics I want to share with you. Thank you very much for staying with me, and see you next week. Bye now.